old school building stood like a monument of time, with ivy crawling up its brick facade and memories etched into every creaking floorboard. It had seen generations walk through its corridors, laughing, crying, growing. But none of its stories were quite like the one that unfolded in Classroom 9B. The year was 2012. The walls of Classroom 9B were pale yellow, with faded posters of mathematical formulas, Shakespeare quotes, and science fair projects from a decade ago. There was a chalkboard with smudged white marks from the previous day's lesson and rows of desks with initials carved into the wood. It smelled like dust, ink, and the faintest trace of chalk. That's where it all began for Aarav, Mira, Kabir, Sana, and Rishi. 5 students, strangers on day 1. But fate had other plans. Aarav was the quiet boy with a love for sketching superheroes in the margins of his notebooks. Mira, loud and unapologetically curious, was the kind who always had her hand raised even if she didn't know the answer. Kabir, a class clown with mischief in his eyes, could make even the strictest teachers laugh. Sana, calm and poetic, kept her thoughts mostly in a worn leather diary. And Rishi, the brilliant one. He had dreams that stretched far beyond the school walls. Their friendship started slowly, first with group projects and shared lunches, then with whispered jokes during boring lectures, and finally with secrets exchanged beneath the old banyan tree behind the school. There was an unwritten rule: the last bench by the window in 9B belonged to them. Every morning, they would race to claim their spot, sometimes pushing, sometimes laughing. They made that bench their world. From there, they watched the seasons change, the rain tracing patterns on the windowpane, the sunlight dancing on their desks, the first fall of winter fog that made the outside world disappear. That bench heard everything: giggles during exams, confessions of crushes, fears about the future. It became a silent witness to their growth. One day, after a particularly hard math test, Mira slumped on the bench and groaned, "I'm going to fail. I swear I saw the question paper mocking me." Kabir, always ready with sarcasm, replied, "Even the paper knows you didn't study." Sana chuckled, pulling out her diary. "I wrote a poem about this moment." Rishi raised his eyebrows. "Let me guess, ode to a failed exam." Aarav just smiled and drew a quick sketch of the 5 of them drowning in books. They laughed for 10 full minutes. As time passed, the school days grew shorter, and the future loomed larger. Final exams approached like a storm. But the 5 friends found solace in each other. They studied late into the night at each other's homes, left notes in textbooks, and promised that no matter what happened, they'd stay friends. But life, as always, had its plans. After the board exams, they sat in classroom 9B one last time. The school was empty, the air heavy with goodbye. They didn't talk much that day. Just sat on their bench, looking out the window, remembering. Mira whispered, "What if this is the last time we're all together?" Kabir threw an arm around her shoulder. "Then let us make it unforgettable." They carved their initials into the desk. Amskr. A pact in wood and memory. Then they stood, took one last look at the classroom that raised them, and walked out. The years moved on. Aarav went to art school in Mumbai. Mira became a journalist, chasing stories across cities. Kabir joined the army. Sana pursued literature, her poetry now published in magazines. Rishi got a scholarship to study in the UK. They tried to stay in touch. They really did. Texts turned into missed calls. Calls turned into silence. Life got busy. But none of them forgot 9B. Or each other. Every year, on the day they graduated, they would send a single message in their old WhatsApp group, for the bench by the window. And every time, all 5 would reply. No matter where they were. 10 years later, a message arrived in the group. Mira, let us meet. In school. 10 years since we left. One by one, they responded. Arav, I'll bring the sketchbook. Sana, and I'll bring poems. Kabir, do they allow soldiers in uniform? Rishi, I've already booked my flight. When they walked into classroom 9B again, it was like stepping into a time machine. Everything was smaller, quieter. But the bench was still there. Faded, scratched, but there. They sat. Just like old times. Laughed about the past, cried about the things they didn't say back then. They read Sana's poems, looked at Arav's old sketches, shared stories of heartbreaks, losses, victories. And as the sun set behind the window, they promised again. No more drifting. No more missed calls. Only memories, and the ones they keep making. Classroom 9B still stands. The bench is still there. If you sit quietly, you might hear echoes of laughter, of chalk against the board, of promises made between friends who grew up but never grew apart. Because some classrooms don't just teach math and grammar. Some classrooms teach you how to be human. And those lessons, they never fade.